Welcome to Evo Biz Devo with Isis Latham, your host, your hub for personal and professional growth since 2018. At Evo Biz Devo, we bring together entrepreneurs, business leaders, and change makers to spark ideas, share knowledge, and grow together. Stick with us as we explore fresh ways to expand networks, build resources, and create lasting impact. Let's get
Isis
started.
Latham, and it's my pleasure today to introduce you to Lisa Foster. Lisa, when I asked her a little bit about herself, she's mentioned that she has always been helping others, that this is a core value of hers. And it's really thanks to her mom for getting the kids started volunteering regularly and young. She's always struggled to find a meaningful way to really give back, though. And so she spent the majority of her career in finance and accounting as a professional with 25 years experience, with the last 10 years in financial management. However, after years of wandering around in the dark, trying to figure out what was physically wrong with herself and feeling like she was losing her brain, she got sick of being told by doctors, you're just getting older, or you have kids, so this is normal. Well, this was when she's decided to take health into her own hands, and finding functional diagnostic nutrition, she began uncovering the root causes to her health issues and started feeling like she really got her body and her brain back again. It was at that time that she made a decision that helping others do the same was what she wanted to do with the rest of her life. And so she became an FDN practitioner. What an incredible story. What a great way to have taken what many people would look at as success. You mentioned that you had been volunteering even as a young person, that was a way of life in your household. Then you went into a career in finance, which, that's considered a good path by many. But it was the health piece that wasn't aligning for you. When did you really start to recognize that something was wrong? Beyond the I've got the ache or I've got the pain or this isn't quite right, which I think a lot of people ignore.
Right. It's a great question. And thank you for that introduction. Um, so I would say really it should be somewhere around 15 years ago, but I didn't put the connection together at the time. Right. So it was more recent when I said something is really wrong, which was roughly 5 years ago. I had such bad brain fog. I could barely even do my job. And like many of us, right, we have demanding jobs that require your brain. So it was a problem. And it was very scary. There was even one time I drove to a store that I had been to a ton of times. And while I was driving, I forgot where I was. I didn't know any, like it was
Oh,
so
wow.
scary. And to think about other people going through those things because of these underlying issues going in their body is really what drives me to want to help, right? Because I have the skills and I have the knowledge and to be able to help other people. But yeah, it was about 5 years ago. And so I had done some searching. That's when I really started to go to the Western doctors and was getting those stories like you talked about, right? This is normal, the quote normal, and basically just kind of continue on. But I kept reading, kept researching, listening to podcasts, reaching out to as many health professionals as I could. And then, just like you said, I finally found functional diagnostic nutrition. Reed Davis is the founder, and the way that he explained it, I knew that this is exactly what I needed, not only for me, but this was my key. This was the thing that I had been missing to be able to help others. That was that piece that I could never find before. And so going through the program, your first client is yourself. And it was just so powerful. The knowledge was so powerful. And I'm really grateful that I found it. And I'm grateful now I'm in this position to be able to help other people do the same.
Yeah. You mentioned something right in the beginning. You talked about brain fog. And I think sometimes words or phrases, they pick up traction and we hear them everywhere. And yet we can't really remember a time that we don't remember hearing those words, but they're not necessarily words that we understand the definition of. And I know for myself, when I started hearing about brain fog, I thought, I don't really know what it is. And I think I misunderstood it as or I misunderstood what I was experiencing as more personal than that, that it was like my inability to learn, or my inability, I wasn't really all that smart, or something like that. How do you define brain fog, and how do you help other people to recognize that it may not be inherently their lack of knowledge or their lack of ability?
Yes, it's a really great question. And what you just said was exactly how I felt, right? That my brain cells were gone, or I couldn't learn anymore, and that kind of thing. It can be so brain fog in the context that I'm talking, so different people may talk about it differently, but it can be anything from not being able to get words, not being able to remember names, having a hard time catching up in conversations. For me, it was also I lost my ability to follow multi-step directions, which was never a problem for me before. So it can be specific to the person, just like anything else, right? Memory issues, not being able to remember, things you're supposed to do, or even forgetting some things in the past. It really can look differently on different people. But what it comes down to in most cases, from what I've researched and from what my training tells me, is that it's all driven by an imbalance within your body.
Hmm.
And so, as FDN practitioners, part of our training is within metabolic chaos, which is a term, an FDM term. But what it talks about is the interrelation of all of the different pathways within the body. And it's similar to what we were talking about, having this networking, except for not in a good way in this case. If you have contributors to that chaos, right? So say you have mold in your home, that can be a huge thing for a lot of people. Brain fog, a lot of the brain fog is caused from mold that we don't know about. But anyway, we'll just use that as an example. So you could have mold in the home. That's a contributor to metabolic chaos. But then you could have something in your body where you could be run down that is accepting that chaos, but then also contributing. So you can see where you have multiple contributors, which is why having the lab testing and clinical correlation to knowing the person as a whole. And in our mastermind, we'll take a little small look at one of the things that I use to develop that information. But those are the things that you can then get to that root cause and say, this, or these, most of the time it's these issues are really what's contributing to this brain fog. And then you give your body the power, or I would help my clients give their body the power to heal itself, right? So you're coaching up all of these strengths because our body wants to be in balance. It wants to be strong and it wants to heal itself. So we coach as much of that up as we can and decrease as many of those contributors to metabolic chaos as we can. So it's a balancing act, right? And then it allows the body over time, right? Nothing happens overnight unless you just got sick yesterday, but most of us, it's been many years of accumulation. And you'll see improvement. It's amazing, the improvement that you can see. I mean, a year ago, there's no way I could have had this call. It would have just been impossible. I wouldn't have been able to keep my place in the conversation. I couldn't have, said a full sentence without kind of losing track. So you think about how many people are going through that. There's so many people that are burning the candle at both ends for years, a lot of times. A lot of times it's, caretakers, whether it be children or elderly, but, that are fitting all of that in, and then their family responsibilities and a full-time job. There's a lot of this, and that's not the only people, but those are a lot of the people that I see that have this buildup over time because they've worn down their reserves on their body over time. And that's why I bring that particular demographic up, because it can be a result of just being worn down, which is your adrenals in that case, not to get too far into the weeds, but it really all contributes.
How do you figure out where your role starts and ends, and maybe another medical practitioner's then needs to pick up and take over, or work together with you?
Right. It's a good question. So, of course, as a certified functional health practitioner, I don't diagnose or treat anything specifically, right? We look at everything non-specifically and holistically. With that, in a lot of cases, it's important to partner with, whether it be someone's Western, regular doctor. Very important to have them know all the tests that are run, any supplements that we may be recommending, or what's on their side. And what typically happens in those cases is the client, will give all the documents to the client, all the contact information for the doctor, so that they can then make this call. Yes, I want to meet with you, or I don't agree with this, or I do agree with this, to make sure that we're aligned, because it's very distinct lines, right? We don't cross into their path and they don't cross into ours, because otherwise it could get messy, for the client.
Yeah.
So that's a very fine line. But the other piece to it, and this is important for physical health, and I'm sure everyone on the phone realizes this, our mental and emotional health is just as important as our physical health. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't have all these, right? I'm not EFT, any of those kind of things. So that's where I'm looking to build up my network of folks that I can refer people out to, because in many cases, you could have some sort of emotional barrier that's affecting your physical health. We can do all of the other pieces in my protocol that will also be effective, but to get there all the way, you may have to address these underlying emotional issues. And so that could be anything from a psychiatrist. Acupuncture is great for a lot of things. EFT, like we talked about, there's so many, even coaching, right? Other coaching. So it depends on the person and what their needs are, but it can really be defined in this: get to know the holistic person during that process and try to cover them all the way around. Even when I can't provide those services, it's just as important they get everything else.
Yeah, that really resonates with me personally, because as we were talking about in an early conversation, I was doing a lot of the emotional work. I was doing that type of healing, and yet not getting the full result that I was after, and kept on feeling like something else is missing here. And of course, I think if you've grown up in a environment that supports natural living and healthy holistic choices, and you come to and that was the way I had always grown up, and you go to Western medicine and they're looking, as you were saying, as diagnostic. They took one look at me and were like, "You're super healthy, what are you complaining about?" But I knew there was something better. How do you help people to set a benchmark for what their expectation is going to be of their own health?
One of the initial questionnaires that we have for people, I say we, it's a FDN methodology. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I have for people is very specifically, what are your top one or two, right? Because we all have multiple things that go on in our bodies, but you really want to focus on those that are impacting you either greatly or daily. It could depend.
Yeah.
But what are the things you want to see most? Where are you today? What are your symptoms? It's a bunch of measures to how you are today, so that as we go through time, you can measure your progress for those symptoms and you know that you're making improvement. It's really powerful. It's such a small thing, but it's so powerful, because as we heal, right, you forget. Any of us forget. We're like, oh, I've always felt this good. No, 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 you haven't. So it's just
Oh, so
important.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I hear what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense, because now when I think back, I had two things that were quite specific. I had an inflamed tailbone, and I was sick about every 3 weeks. And I said, I'm fed up. I'm not going to be sick anymore. I'm not going to be an ill person. That's not who I am. And it was just, a cold, but it was unpleasant, and it kept me from living life fully. And of course, I couldn't sit down very well. And well, in this world, we need to be able to walk, stand, and sit.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I could tell right away. So what I think is sometimes missing in this industry, and correct me if you think differently, but that there is this holistic approach. There is, and it can be a rather rude awakening to some people, that we would expect them to take responsibility for their own health. One, that we're going to ask them to do a bit of trial and error, to try to figure out, what is best for you. And then at the same time, because that can be a little bit, I'll use the word militant to some people, and some practitioners, I think, approach it that way. And then because they're so passionate. And then there's also such a thing as bedside manner. How do you balance those two things?
Right. Yeah, because you don't want to scare your clients away.
Right.
That's not the way to do it. So talking about the first thing, so the ownership, right? And you're right, because the Western model of medicine is no, you do as the doctor says, don't even question it, and so that drives our behavior. But what I communicate is we get to own our own health. We don't have to have someone telling us what to do with our health anymore. I'm here to guide, right? But I'm not here to tell you. It's your body and it's your life. And what I think is really important is when somebody gains those tools and they accept the ownership of their health, and it can take time, right? But typically if somebody's coming looking for, functional health, holistic health, they're ready to take control of their own health. But the big part about it is if you give them the tools, the goal is for people to be healthy for life, right? Your body will change, but if you have those tools, you now know this is what I do when my body changes and I can get right back on track. That's so powerful because the amount of money that saves in healthcare and downtime, right? If you can't fully experience your life, like when you were sick every few weeks, that's a big deal, even if it's a cold. You want to be able to fully experience your life, fully contribute to any of the causes that you want. And I think that if people can look at it longer term, then that's huge, right? Then they'll be like, yes, I can own my own health and own my own journey. And that's what we want. As far as bedside manner, yeah. So the way I see myself, because I have the lab skills and the practitioner skills and the health coach skills, but I see myself as number one, a guide, right? So anyone coming to me doesn't have those specific skills and those specific tools, right, to get to the underlying issues and know exactly what's going on in their body. I have the lantern. So we're on this dark trail. I have this vision in my mind. We're on this dark trail at night, and I'm holding the lantern so the person can see the way. And they're the hero of the journey, right? They're taking the journey. I'm just holding the lantern. However, in a lot of cases, right, because of accountability and just needing someone, like we need somebody to lean on when we're going through hard things. And if we're not feeling well, that's so much harder than if we're feeling well, right? So in the back, I'm the cheerleader, right? And I'm just, the person doing whatever it needs to be done to push them along. So I think that people need it from all directions because they don't know. It's not like you can just look on the internet what's going on with your body today and have some certainty in that. So I think it's really important to support people where they're at.
That's great. So you've given us a great kind of insight into what it might be like to work with you. Tell me and tell the people who might be listening to this, how do they get into your space? How do they kind of get a taste of what it's like to have Lisa being a cheerleader for great health? And maybe they're not ready to hire you yet to be their practitioner, but they want to orbit in that space with you. How do they find you? Where do they find you?
They can find me. So my website is down today. It will be back up again tomorrow.
Okay.
My website is www.optihealthinsights.com. I'm also on Facebook. I haven't been active lately, but I do plan to hop back on again soon. It's Lisa M. Foster, FDN-P.
Okay.
And on Instagram, OptiHealth Insights.
And on Instagram. And are you on LinkedIn?
In my personal profiles on LinkedIn, I'm working to build up. I have like 1 or 2 posts for this specifically, but I'm looking to build myself up on LinkedIn because many of the key people that I'm looking for are frequent on LinkedIn. And I am, professionally, I just haven't posted for this yet. So yes, I'm on LinkedIn under Lisa Foster.
Great. Well, we can help you build your profile there, and by having more connections. And then, how does somebody, if they're saying, you know what, it's time, I think this might be the right choice for me. I'm ready to take charge of my physical well-being. How do they start working with you?
They can schedule time on my Calendly. So under Calendly, I'm OptiHealth Insights.
Okay.
And I would be very happy if I could help everyone in this world. I would definitely do it. But with that in mind, that's why I'm working to kick off group coaching at the end of Q1. So that's been my target because it's how I can reach more people, right? And a lot of people just like this, right? We have our network here. It's powerful to have other people to lean on as well. The coach is great, like being a coach is fantastic, but sometimes you want that group. So I'm very excited for the group coaching.
That's exciting. How
It
wonderful.
is. I'm about halfway through my preparation of making sure it's all laid out fine, and then I can send out, all the information on it. I'm very excited.
Well, for those of you that are listening to this recording, I'm sorry you're not going to be able to be with us for our mastermind, but now you know how to find Lisa. And for those who are present today, we get to jump into our mastermind now. I want to thank you, Lisa, for being with us, for opening up and telling us about your story and about the way that you help people experience better life. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Want to be our next featured speaker? Click the link in the description to register, and let's stay connected. Follow me on all those social media platforms for financial tips to help you make your money work smarter while you build financial stability. Stay tuned for more and see you in the next one.